Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Gynobits podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Susie Weber, board-certified gynecologist and menopause specialist. On the Gynobits podcast, we'll cover women's health issues with a focus on menopause, vulvovaginal conditions, and sexual health. Welcome to the Gynobits podcast today. Last podcast episode I did was with Dr. Heather Awad, and we talked about the frustrating perimenopausal weight changes and weight gain. And she had some pretty cool tips for trying to lose weight in the perimenopausal and menopausal period. And I've been incorporating some of those recently. I've also added some other things as well. And the last couple of weeks, I've been using a continuous glucose monitor specifically to see how my body handles carbohydrates and food timing and things like that. And it's been enlightening to a certain extent. Today, I was just going to go through some of the hacks I've been incorporating recently, and I've been tracking my weight for the last 6 weeks or so, and I have managed to lose about 5 pounds, which is not a huge amount, but I figure that's probably a win considering that I've been out of town a couple of times for at least a week total, back to Illinois, where it was 100 degrees and I wasn't walking and I was not doing any exercise. And, frankly, there's not a lot to do when it's 100 degrees and you're in the middle of Illinois. So there's a lot of eating and probably too much drinking. Now, if you are in your 40s or 50s, you have probably noticed that weight gain at this time is not only frustrating, but can happen in the absence of doing anything different. So I've noticed that I'd gained about 20 pounds over the last several years, and I had not changed a whole lot, I don't think, but some things definitely change around midlife. I'd had a couple injuries and some surgeries and been sidelined, and I think that I had started to drink more. I think everyone maybe started to drink a little bit more in the pandemic. I know when my kids were small, we were running around, we were busy. I don't remember a lot of cocktails or anything like that around dinner time because someone was always melting down. Plus, there are hormonal changes that we can't control around midlife, hormonal fluctuations, and sleep can become a real issue. So it's very common that I hear from my perimenopausal women about bad sleep, and sleep affects your cortisol, your energy for exercising, and impacts how your body treats its food. Stress can be a huge factor with weight gain as well, and if we're not exercising and mitigating this stress, this can impact our weight in a negative way as well. I'm not a nutritionist. I probably can't eloquently explain what's happening with insulin resistance and things like that, but this appears to be a huge factor in midlife, how our body processes foods and carbohydrates, and how our insulin and glucose balance each other. A lot of the things we used to do when we were younger, like restrict our calories, cut back, don't eat a donut for a week or so, boom, you're back to your fighting weight. That stuff doesn't work, and calorie restriction, our body realizes, and metabolism can decline. Things like calorie restriction and excessive exercising don't generally seem to work as well as it used to. And snacking and grazing may actually be doing more harm than good for the majority of us. So the 10 things that I've been doing in the past 6 weeks that seem to be moving the scale in the right direction, albeit slowly, but I'm in this for the long haul. I'm not going to make these huge changes that I can't continue. Intermittent fasting, I'm not a fan of. It personally hasn't fit into my lifestyle. And keto, low carbs. I need carbs. Otherwise, if I'm just eating proteins and fats and veggies all day, I'm starving and I don't feel well and I don't go to the bathroom. So TMI there, but it's not for me. So the 10 things that I've been doing. First thing is increasing my protein. So I've read that in midlife, it might be a good idea to increase your protein intake to 1 gram per kilogram per day. And there's a lot of articles out there about that, but I really try to aim for a serving of protein with every meal. I've also been increasing fiber. So I shoot for getting 25 to 35 grams of fiber in a day, because that's going to fill you up and probably helps with how we process our glucose as well. And I've been shooting for a lot of vegetables. Second thing I've been trying is decreasing my simple carbohydrates. So I've been trying to avoid rice, bread, and pasta. I will have one of these probably most days, but I limit it to one meal and I make sure that my other meals are very low in simple carbohydrates. And one thing that I found that's interesting with this continuous glucose monitor is that my body treats different carbohydrates differently. So I like beans. I think they're a great source of fiber and protein and they fill you up. But I was worried about carbohydrates in the beans because a lot of low carb diets really hate on beans. But what I found is that my body isn't bothered by beans. I don't get a spike in my glucose and it fills me up. Rice, however, in sandwiches, sandwiches are the devil. I had a Jimmy John's sandwich a week ago because we've been busy with running around with softball, and man, that spiked my glucose level way up. So if I'm going to have a sandwich, I'll probably incorporate complex carbohydrates, probably try to do it earlier in the day. I think it's better to get your carbs and your heavier meals in the middle of the day when you're more active. And I've also noticed that food order for me seems to matter as well. If I hide the carbohydrates at my meal after I've had protein and fiber and fat, and I got this tip from Dr. Awad from the previous podcast and from her podcast as well, it really does matter. So if I'm going to have fruit, I haven't noticed any spikes, but I've been having fruit at the end of my meal. Third thing I've been doing is really watching my portion size. So I find a lot of times that I might take a certain amount of food and start eating it, and really I'm full and I still have a third of my meal left, but the good Midwestern Gen X kid in me feels the need to not waste food and wants to finish that food. So I find that if I take a smaller portion, or I just say, hey, I'm going to eat half of this and then I can wrap up the other half, or I can, refrigerate it, eat it later, then that's been helping. And I don't get as full, because once you start to feel like you're not hungry anymore, you probably should stop eating. And I know that once I get to the point where I feel full, going forward in the next 30, 60 minutes, I'm going to feel over full. Portion sizes at a lot of restaurants is crazy. We went out to one of our favorite Mexican restaurants and I had a margarita. I had probably half the basket of chips, with my husband having the other half. And then I had my meal, but I limited myself. I had enchiladas and I had one enchilada and I brought the rest home. So really I had another meal. Actually, I had probably 2 more meals, because what I brought home, my daughter came home and ate part of it, and then I ate the rest of it the next day for lunch. We don't have to eat everything on our plate, and there's so much good advice. If you go out to eat, just bag half of it and bring it home. And that, I can't believe I made that meal go for 3 meals. I've also found that walking after meals is really helpful for bringing my glucose levels down, or at least keeping them from really spiking. And obviously it's good exercise. And if I walk after dinner and bring the dog, he loves it. So it's a win-win. I've also been cutting out snacks. I just try to focus on my 3 meals. I eat my breakfast, my lunch, and my dinner. If I really get hungry or hangry at the end of the day, because I tend to get hungry between lunch and dinner, especially if I've had a lot of exercise or really active day. So I'll just focus on having a snack that's mainly protein. So I may have a serving of cheese or lunch meat. I've been trying to really avoid processed foods, but if I had lunch meat, turkey, sliced turkey, something like that, have a piece of that. Or I may have a serving of nuts. But again, I try to limit myself really to a serving. I've also been avoiding snacks after dinner. So sometimes I'll watch a movie after dinner. It's my husband's love language. We watch movies together and he will have a snack. And when I see somebody snacking, I feel like I have to snack, and then I get myself a snack and I really don't need it. I'm hungry. I'm not even hungry. I just ate dinner. So I just make myself some herbal tea. I drink that. I drink some water and I feel fine, because I notice if I have a snack later, sometimes I wake up in the morning, if the snack was salty, my eyes are all puffy, and I don't feel good. And I know this. And so, it's taken me a long time to finally say, or finally do what I know I should do. I mean, we all know what we should do. It's just making ourselves do it. And that's the hard part. But I've been focusing on how my habits, my eating habits, my exercise habits make me feel, and trying to use that to keep the momentum going. Next thing I've been doing is limiting alcohol. A lot of times when we hit midlife, we get older, our bodies just don't process it as well. And so I know for me, if I have a drink, I get tired and I have noticed that maybe more bloated with drinking alcohol, and I still enjoy it, a glass of wine here and there, a cocktail here and there, but I've been limiting it more to an occasion. So once a week, Saturday, have a nice meal, have a glass of wine, and enjoy it and not feel bad about it. But not coming home every night and having a cocktail or making it part of the daily winding down ritual so that I rely on it. Number 7, I've already alluded to, and that was just not eating until you're full. Just eat until you're not hungry, and then give your body some time. And if you do feel like you're still hungry, then have a little bit more. Number 8, I've been limiting processed food and added sugar, and this is a no-brainer. We know that processed foods have all kinds of chemicals that we don't even know what the hell they are and can cause inflammation in our body. And inflammation can cause a lot of health issues. And added sugars, of course, can add extra calories. And again, extra sugar, more insulin, more storing our food as fat and gaining weight. Number 9, I don't allow myself to sabotage myself. So what I mean by that is if I eat a cookie, then I just move on. I don't dwell on it. I don't think, well, forget it. I just ruined the whole day, so now I'm going to eat this bag of cookies, or I'm going to go eat everything in sight. I just allow myself the treat and move on. I also read something recently that you can treat your day, you can divide it into quarters, like you divide a year into quarters and just say, well, first quarter of the day, I messed up. I had a donut. So I'm just going to move on. I reset, I refocus, and I move on to the next quarter. And I think that is good advice. And number 10, I allow myself some treats because I am a foodie and I do like cocktails, and I'm never going to go get a donut with my daughter or make cookies or have treats. So I allow myself a treat, and then I just try to make up for it with healthy eating the majority of the time. Or, for example, we have kind of a bad Dairy Queen habit because it's close to kids' school and music school, and we go after softball and things like that. And so I'll get a small blizzard, but I'll make it last for a few days. So, for example, I had a blizzard the other night. I took a couple of bites to keep it from overflowing or melting on the way home. Then I had part of it the next day. Actually, I had a lot of part of it. So I ate most of it, and then the CGM went off the chart. I think that was the highest glucose reading I had in the 2 weeks that I've been tracking, and it was up to almost 200. It was up to 190. And I could tell. My body felt it. And so I put the rest of it away, and it's actually still in the freezer, but I'm not sure I'm going to eat it at this point. But if I have a treat like that, I just try to do a little bit, because really it's those first couple of bites. You get that dopamine going, it's tasty, you get the sweetness of it. You don't necessarily need to eat the whole thing. And now I realize not everyone is going to have the desire or funds to get a glucose monitor and wear it around. But I think a lot of these tips will apply to a lot of women in the midlife and perimenopause transition. So to recap, number 1, increase your protein, vegetables, fiber. 2, limit your simple carbohydrates like white rice, bread, pasta, and even brown rice. Brown rice can probably make your glucose spike as well. Decrease your portions and follow serving sizes. Exercise after meals. Get up, take a walk for 15 minutes. Don't snack. Unless if you have to absolutely have a snack, make sure that it's going to be something that's got good fats or protein in it. Limit alcohol. Don't eat until you're full. Eat until you're not hungry. Limit your processed foods and added sugars. Don't sabotage yourself. If you eat something, you're not happy about it, move on, reset. Don't dwell on it. And last one, allow yourself some treats, but limit the size of the treat. And then also other things to consider with lifestyle, maximize your sleep. Make sure you're trying to get as much quality sleep as possible, 7 to 9 hours. Also look at the stress and see what you can do to alleviate that. Go for a walk, meditate, exercise. All of these things can help. Anyway, I hope you found this helpful, and I will keep you posted with how this whole CGM and perimenopausal weight journey is going. Thank you for joining me for today's GynoBits podcast. If you like this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share. Just a reminder that this is not medical advice and you should consult with your personal physician. Also, the opinions and views are mine only and do not reflect those of my employer. If you would like more information or to consult with me, please go to my webpage, healthiermenopause.com. You can also find me on Instagram at healthiermenopause and Facebook, Menopause MD.